I was like, why do I feel the need to have alcohol every day? Even if it's just a drink, that frequency feels concerning to me. It feels like it has more of a hold on me than I would like anything in my life to have. So after the first couple weeks where it was top of mind, like, oh, my friend's having wine. I want wine. I like wine. I would normally have wine right now. I overcame that, went through some emotional purging. And on the tail end of 6 weeks, I was like a born again Christian, I swear. I was like, did you guys know that this was here the whole time? Like, I've never felt happier in my life, and I didn't realize how unhappy I had been.
Yes.
Like,
They
how
call that the pink
existential.
cloud. Are you familiar with that phrase, the pink cloud?
No.
The pink cloud is known in, I believe, in the 12-step programs where that joy, that natural joy and lift you think you're getting from alcohol, or actually you're not even aware it's coming from alcohol. You're just like, I am happy. What are you talking about? I got no problem with alcohol. Then you remove it from your system for about 6 weeks and you start to experience the same joy that you might have experienced as a young child, right? Free, unabashed, joyous. Like you can't put a price tag on that feeling. I personally don't ever want to live life without it because it's
Yeah.
sustainable if you just don't drink. So happy to have you here, Kim. Welcome to Fire and Soul. Finally, we get you on the show.
I know. I'm so happy to be here. I loved connecting on my podcast this week, and so it's such a treat here to get to be on yours.
I feel the same, and it's wild because we've really only met a couple of times in person, which was brief, right, through the Tony Robbins community, and so I'm just so glad that our paths have brought us here. We seem to be walking a similar path in all things listening, taking the action on those divine directives, and really working opening ourselves up to discernment. And that's the part that I'm really excited to chat with you about because you seem to be truly embodying a divinely aligned life. I know it's not always easy, but there seems to be a lot of magic in the uncertainty of your life as I observe. So I wanted just to start with a little bit of your background, having that corporate 9 to 5, maybe the sort of cliff notes of that, and then bringing you up to the moment that you chose agency and sovereignty and made a medical choice a few years ago that a lot of our listeners made that was similar, and what that shifted in you and opened in you since. And we'll just start there.
I love it. Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm just so grateful to be called to containers like this where we can have these kinds of conversations that 3 years ago felt really edgy and scary, and it shows how far the world has come that it's less so now. We're still doing the brave thing, but it's less terrifying.
Well, for
So,
some, for some,
yeah,
I really feel like it's people like me and you and others that we are connected with and follow. We are, I mean, listen, it's not braggy at all, but we are a bit of the way show or movement,
for
right?
sure.
There are some that are still stuck and this doesn't feel right. I don't know what to do. What will people think? So we can't assume that the masses are doing it, but yes, there are more and more and more.
Yeah, for sure. So just to take it back, as you said, it was probably about 11 years ago. I was working my 9 to 5. It was like my second corporate job out of college. And I kind of realized by my body how out of alignment I was because I was like really sick for months and I couldn't put my finger on it. I was working 14-hour days, driving an hour to and from work, and I was like, gosh, there just literally has to be something different or I'm going to like die. This is not sustainable. I don't know how people do this. Entered the 4-hour work week. Bless that man, Tim Ferriss. Seriously, like it's so funny how the expanders come into our lives right at the most perfect moment. And, maybe they continue to resonate for a long time. Maybe, as we've talked about a little
Yeah.
bit offline, they can come in and then go when they stop resonating. But Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week, came for me right at the perfect time. And I remember sitting on a bus driving back from New York City to Washington, D.C. after New Year's Eve, and I was reading this book after spending New Year's with my best friend, and I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I have to do. So I didn't know a single entrepreneur at the time. I didn't know anyone living that like digital nomad life. It was a very new world to me, but I just felt this internal knowing I don't know how into human design are you, but I'm a
Oh
generator.
my gosh. Well, I'm not human design manifesting generator by that, but I'm deeply into the gene keys.
Yes, yes.
Deeply. Okay. All right. Yes.
Yes.
Maybe we'll do a
Yes.
follow-up in just that because it's changing my life.
We should, because I want
Okay.
to. I've been thinking about it since we chatted about the other day. I was
Okay.
like, I want to go deeper. But
Oh, all right, cool.
my sacral, for those of you listening who are human design nuts, my sacral was like zing, just a true knowing. Instantly, I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. It makes no sense, but I'm gonna quit my job and move overseas
Yeah.
within 6 months. 4 months later, I was on a plane headed for Vietnam, and I had left my entire life behind. And that was sort of like the genesis of me starting to live what I call a bold and aligned life.
Yes.
And it wasn't for another 3 years after that, 2 or 3 years, that the Bold Life movement, which is my blog turned coaching business turned podcast, it wasn't for another 3 years that that even came onto the scene. But I just started to be like, I need to trust my own intuition. I need to do the brave thing, do the seemingly taboo or unconventional thing because I just know that it's right. And
Mhm.
then I spent the next 2.5 years living all over Southeast Asia and Europe, leading this entrepreneurial community, starting my first e-commerce business. Like it was basically entrepreneurship was the segue to personal growth, which was the segue to spirituality for me.
Yeah, same here. Oh, I love that story. Now, I'm very curious. Did you have a social media following? How were you actually making money? Who was transacting with you? Who was your audience at that time?
No, so it was a very audacious goal to launch a business in 6 months and replace my income. Like, I'm sorry, anyone who's listening that's like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Is typically not how it works. Not to say you can't, but it's typically not that overnight. So
Right.
what ended up happening was I just poured myself into the internet and I was like blogs, podcasts, courses. I bought my first course ever in 2013. I was like, teach me how to have an online business. Like I just devoured this content. And I ended up finding this community of internet entrepreneurs that were all location independent. And this was back when Twitter was like really popping, and a lot
Yeah.
of these people were tweeting at each other. So I started tweeting at them and just acting like I knew them. And I ended up seeing that these two digital marketers were hosting a meetup in New York City. And I was like, if I could just get at this meetup, I bet that it will open these doors and they'll tell me what I need to know about this online membership community, and I'll be able to like figure out how to get into it. And then if I could just get into that, I'll learn how to build a business. It was like, this is my grand plan, right? It's just like connect with people, be curious, be authentic. So I
That's
ended up
a good
calling out of
plan.
work. Yeah, thank you. Right? It's worked for me thus
Yeah.
far. Like
Yeah.
that's it, you guys. That's the script.
That's
Be
it.
curious, be authentic, have faith.
Love it. Love it.
That's it. So I ended up going to New York City again. There's like a lot of back and forth between DC and New York at this time. And I showed up at this meetup and it was like me and five digital marketers. Um, uh, a lot of them, you might know their names actually, but I just kind of networked and shared my interests and had questions, and they ended up referring me into the community. And so what happened was within 4 months, I had not only joined the community that was like only for entrepreneurs. I had no business, by the way. I had a job, full 9 to 5 job, actually more like an 8 to 11. And my curiosity and my enthusiasm just showed that I was like a great fit for their community manager. So they ended up hiring me as an event planner and a community manager. And so that's what I did for 2 years. And by being immersed in this community, I got to learn for free from all these people. How do you build a business? Like, how does
Yeah.
it actually work? And so I was able to launch my first e-commerce store. I had a stand-up paddleboard drop ship store back when drop shipping was like a big thing. Uh,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah, so there was no social media. I mean, even to this day, that's like not really been my thing. It's mostly been in person, kind of like us, in person networking and just genuine embodiment and authenticity.
Oh, I love that. And by the way, we should also qualify. It wasn't just a typical, 8 to 11, i.e., 9 to 5 job. I mean, weren't you working for the government?
Oh my God, that was my first one. Yeah,
When I
wow.
read that on your website, I was like, Oh, good grief. Oh, you poor thing.
My first job out of college, this is like a PSA for anyone who's new to manifestation. Don't hyper focus on what you don't want because
Right.
you will call it in. I remembered coming out of college, I was like, I will never get a job doing cold calling. I will never get a job doing cold calling. I don't want to cold call. My first job out of college was cold calling to the government. That's what I did. So yeah,
That
that was really soul sucking. Very soul sucking.
soul sucking, especially if anyone does check out your social media, which we will link. But if anyone's curious right now on the gram, it's the Kimberly Rich. And it's like your whole vibe is like you're in a mountain, like in a hammock with a laptop, like wearing almost no clothes. I'm just looking at
Yeah.
the scene. There's lush greenery in every image. That's my vibe too.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Anyway,
You're
anti-government,
cold
anti-job.
calling. Oh yeah. So then you move into what you're doing now, and really leading the Bold Life movement and helping a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, emerging coaches, really um, deepen into the core principles that you talked about earlier. But can we fast forward to where you were and what you were doing at the time of it was probably what, 21,
Mhm.
when much of the world was in lockdown and most of people were believing everything that they heard on the TV and not questioning things or listening to their own internal wisdom. They certainly might not be connected to their inner knowing. So, what was
Mhm.
that process like for you? Because honestly, I don't think enough people talk about this. And I still think a lot of people are experiencing PTSD from that time. And we just kind of have to just take it when we can get it, right? We don't want to focus on it, but yet we also need to be able to just express and let it break loose sometimes from the nervous system. So, yeah, whatever wants to come through from that time because it was intense.
Yeah, for sure. So, real quick before I talk about August 2021, like I'll remember it until the day I die. I want to share that the way I evolved out of that community management position and eventually found the Bold Life movement and everything that's come since was a real dark night of the soul, which is exactly what August 2021 was for me. But it takes a number of those moments where, I was fired from that community management position. My boyfriend that I had just moved in with in Austin broke up with me 2 weeks after we moved there from living overseas. So I lost my housing because we had just moved in together, and it was like boom, boom, boom. Everything that I knew was ripped out from underneath me overnight. And
Mm,
at the time, of course, it was debilitating, but it set the stage for what would come 5 months later, which was the birth of the Bold Life movement. And then, 5 months after that, my podcast, 9 months after that, my TEDx talk. So it was like none of that could have happened without that seemingly, um, like, horrible thing happening with the job, the boyfriend, etcetera. So, cut to August 2021. I have paused my coaching at this point. When the pandemic came about, I had stepped away from coaching with the Bold Life movement because I really wanted to be offline. I really wanted a job or I wanted a career, a mission that allowed me to be like not connected to tech at all. I was like, I need to go be out in the world. I've done enough computer stuff for a while. And then this travel job that I had gotten right before February 2020 disappeared, as did much of all of our normal life in March 2020. And so for the not, year and a half after that, I just sort of like waited, launched a group program, kind of was like, okay, Spirit, what's happening? How long is this weird reality gonna persist? I don't know what we're doing here.
mhm,
And then in 2021, the world like started to kind of open up again. And that company came back around and said, hey, people are traveling. Do you want this job still? And I was like, yes, I want to lead luxury cycling trips. That sounds amazing.
mm,
Like, put me in, coach. And so I did that for a summer. And I did it with the agreement with this company that there would be no mandates. I said, if I say yes to this, you're not going to force me to get the vaccine. I haven't had time to research it. It's brand new. I'm not ready to say yes to something like that. And they were like, yep. And then 2 weeks in to
oh.
training, the day before we're set out to lead our first trip, they said, you all need to get it. It's required. And I was like, are you effing kidding me?
Mm,
So I leave for my first trip and Fortunately, I was in that, like, weird government dictated 90-day window of, like, if you've had COVID, you shouldn't get it. Who even
Mm,
knows what that means? And so I kind of had this, like, space, this time that was bought for me, this gray area, and then the 90 days came and went, and the company was like, "No, you have to get it." So I was in Salt Lake City on my first week off. This is in August 2021. I think I told you this earlier. I was like standing in a DSW parking lot. This is how I spend my first week off after 12 weeks. I'm gonna go to DSW. And I get a call from the HR, and they're like, "You have to get it by tomorrow or you can't come back." And all of my belongings, everything, my whole life was up in the Pacific Northwest because that's where I'd been leading trips. And I was like, "I'm not gonna get this thing by tomorrow. I haven't had any opportunity to research it." My just internal knowing is saying, "You don't need this. Don't get this. Don't go get this thing." And so they were like, "Okay, don't come back." And I
mm,
was like, "Okay, what about all my stuff and my job and my housing?" And at the same time, my family was very much buying into the whole
mm.
narrative, like, they had gotten it, and even though I had seen them multiple times over the course of the previous year and a half
Didn't
without
matter.
ever taking tests or wearing masks or having it, you know, all of a sudden it was like, "You don't have it, you can't see us."
Mm,
So, family, community,
mm,
housing, career. Again, overnight, all the things that give you a sense of stability and security were quote unquote taken away.
mm.
And now looking back, I see it led me towards what I would consider like my second spiritual and most important awakening ever. So I'm so grateful.
Wow. Now, did you have any awareness around, listen, we all know now that not every conspiracy theory is true and not everything that's said on television is untrue, right? So there's so much inversion and chaos, all by design to keep us just completely confused and out of our power. But did you
Totally.
have any awareness around that stuff back then? Or was it just a, I don't know, I don't need this? Because I have quite a few friends that they to this day are not aware of any of that. They just did not feel that they were meant to get
Mm.
that shot and did not waver against that truth, against all the repercussions, but not because of anything else other than just an inner knowing. What was your situation?
At the time, it was pure inner knowing,
Wow.
and honestly, it was the mandate that sort of,
Yeah,
supported that because I was like, anytime in my life anyone has ever been coercive with me, major red flag. Why
totally.
are you pushing me? Something's not right. I already was like a
Mhm.
no to this, but now I'm a definite no, and so
Yeah.
that sort of catalyzed my rabbit hole, my research red pill rabbit hole, whatever you wanna call it.
Talked about that when I was a guest on your show.
Yeah.
It was so interesting to realize that we shared August of 21 in common. And it seems like so many other synchronicities of just, oh yeah, they're very similar path in a lot of different ways. But that journey, I took a medicine journey in August of 21, and it was kind of leaky, to be honest. It was not a safe container. I didn't know that then. I wouldn't change it because it was a rebirth. I literally went through a birthing process, all clothes on, nothing crazy,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I was the focal point. It was wild. And I
Mhm.
didn't know that that was my rebirth, one of what would be many. And then 2 days later, I basically left Santa Monica, which was my entire identity. I called her my soulmate. I didn't identify with the politics, with the community. I was the outsider for the first time. And so that was incredibly painful, but at the same time, it catalyzed like way more authenticity, truth, courage, right? And that's what the podcast has turned into. And now we have, just this beautiful worldwide community that is walking a very similar path. So what happens next? Because we were very alone in that space. The media had us thinking that there was like two of us on the planet that were making those choices. We'd never be invited inside a public space again. We could never travel. Our family won't talk to us. What was that like for you?
Totally. Yeah, so I remember so I'm in the parking lot of DSW, sitting on the curb. I mean, I just looked like such a mess. I'm sitting on the curb crying. People are walking by like, "Do you need water? Are you okay?" Because I knew in that moment, I think I told you this offline, that it was so much bigger than that one decision. It was almost like an out of body experience. So I go inside and I just start like pacing the aisles at DSW, and all of a sudden it occurs to me, "Oh, I can go to Burning Man now because I'm not working." Like, that was I was just like, where will I go? That's the next week. It'll be my home for 10 days. I don't know where I live. So I already have a camp I can go with.
Oh my
So
gosh.
weird. But it was there at Burning Man that I connected with a new group of friends who shared my ideologies,
Yeah.
who welcomed me in like family. And I ended up going to Puerto Rico a month later to this particular group's engagement party, a couple in this group. And they were like, you should just stay here. This is how it works for me, Michelle. It's like, where do I live? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And then the universe says, just go here. And then everything fell into place. I was like, well,
Wow.
if I'm meant to be here, it'll reveal itself. A girlfriend was like, "Hey, can you stay at my house? I'm gonna go to Mexico for ayahuasca." And then she was like, "Actually, I'm not gonna come back. Do you want to just keep the sublease? $500 a month,
Oh
a
my God.
block from the beach. My friends down the street were paying $10,000 a month for their place."
The same
And I was like,
neighborhood.
"Same, yeah, 4-minute walk." And I
Yep.
was like, "I guess I'm supposed to be here."
Wow.
And that was sort of like the universe just embracing me and being like, this
Mm,
is your home for now. We're going to open a lot of doors for you. You're going to learn a lot of things that are really confronting and are going to dismantle a lot of old belief systems. It's going to push a lot of people in your life away for a period of time, but it's going to be okay. And
mm.
that's what happened.
Wait a second, Kim. So I really, really value what you just said, but I want to make sure I heard it correctly. And then I have a follow-up question. Was that like highest self, soul, guides? Do you know who it was or where the message was coming from? Or
All of
does
the
it
above.
matter? Yeah, as a sincere,
Yeah,
does it matter? And
all
when
of
did
the above.
you learn to discern those messages as not being egoic, but being spirit led, right? Being intuitive, being divine guidance. That's a huge piece for so many.
I think it's the flow, like the ease with which these seemingly like nonsensical situations transpire. I mean, it was literally like, here, now you stay here. And similarly to when I left my 9 to 5, like there was no part of me that should have thought, I can leave this company in 6 months. I didn't know anyone doing that, but it was like, here's an introduction, here's an opportunity. And so when these sparks come and it's just this, I don't even know where it lives in my body. It must be sacral, right?
Yeah, well, that's
Generator.
where if you're fully integrated and you're aligned, which you are, that's your sacral is second chakra, right? So that's real power in the solar plexus, not egoic, mine, me, look at I. It's us, ours, and we. And so you're in communion with the universe.
Yeah.
That's the
That's
way I
beautifully
interpret it
said.
anyway. That's
Yeah.
for sure. Care Bear, Care Bear.
Oh my God, my favorite show as a child. I kid you
Oh
not.
my God, of course. I love that so much. So let's continue this thread because what you are kind of familiar with, and my listeners are a little more familiar with, but not all of it because it's still unfolding, is that I've been on this journey for a few years of where will I go? And I have booked and canceled 5 or 6 different trips, 3 to Austin, 1 to Montana, one, no, another one to Idaho, 2 to Florida. It's been more, 7 probably. And it just right before I was supposed to go, I'd get a very clear message of, you're not moving there. It's not time. But when it is time, you will know.
Mm,
Over the last 3 years, it was just like, and it's been very adventurous. Meanwhile, I moved out to Calabasas, which is, I may as well be in a different city as compared to where I was in Santa Monica. It's just really spacious and beautiful. And if California weren't so eerie right now, I would just stay. But I have been given a very clear message of you're never going to want to leave California, but you need to go.
mm.
And I've now been able to discern where those messages come from. And so I'm just curious, like what happens next? You're in Puerto Rico, you're in this flow, but when does the bold life movement come back into the scene? Because that seems to be where you're really thriving right now and being of true service.
Yeah. So when I found myself without a job in, August, September of 2021, I was like, I don't want to have to think. Being an entrepreneur can be a lot of work. And I was like, my root chakra is so messy right now and like not together, not strong that I just need a job. I was like the anti-job girl for so long, but I was like, I need to be taken care of.
Yes.
So I actually turned to that community of location independent business owners. They have a job board
Mm.
and I was like, okay, I need a remote job. I have these skills from my former corporate life. And I applied for one job, and that's the job I got. And so overnight, I was like, okay, all my finances are taken care of again. And I ended up doing that for about a year and a couple months. So January of last year, 2023, Michelle, I cannot make this stuff up. My I'm in Mexico for the wedding of that couple that I had just told you about.
Oh my
And
God.
while I'm there, my friend slash landlord sends me a text and it gives me 30 days notice out of the blue. And
Whoa.
I've just gotten a dog. I've like committed to be there long term. I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. And I get home and my manager, bless her heart, says, I have to let you go within 48 hours of me losing my housing.
Oh my, this is
So
an
this is now
interesting
the
little,
third
this is a
time.
life path that's, I've never heard this. Okay.
It's in my human design. So
Okay.
like
You've
now I
learned to
just
sit.
trust it. Totally.
Exactly.
I said to her,
Totally.
I was like, Ashley, are you firing me? Because she's like, we've been looking at the numbers. And I was like, oh my God, are you firing me? And she's like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, it's okay. Like something amazing must be coming. And my
Wow.
word for last year had been bloom and quantum. I picked two words. And without skipping a beat, she said, Kim, you're wilting here. She's like, I need you to go bloom. Like
Oh,
you're too big for this role. I was a project manager. And I was like, yeah, I hate it.
yeah.
Yeah, you need to go bloom. And within 2 weeks, a company who I'm now the head coach for, Transformation Academy, came onto the scene. They said, we want you to run our program called Quantum Leap.
Oh, wow.
And so that's the podcast that Michelle came on. It was the Profitable Coach podcast. And so finding my footing so easily, so effortlessly back in the coaching world allowed me to rebirth the Bold Life movement
Mm,
without any like hangups. I was just like, and now we're back.
yeah. Well, quite frankly, you were always there. You were living a very bold and courageous life, right? But it just didn't look the way that maybe we would hope or were told
Expect.
it would
Yeah.
look. Right, expect. But you've always been taken care of.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so how did that connection happen? I mean, I get like your guides and your angels were clearly orchestrating this, but like in the real world, tangible earthly experience, how did you connect to this new community?
Oh my gosh. I love that you just said angels. So in 2020, I'm sitting there. Um, what is the what we lockdown? I was like, what's the word? My brain doesn't even appreciate that word. It doesn't acknowledge it. We were in lockdown,
Yeah.
and I was at my mom's house because the travel job had gone away. I had come back from living in Bali for a year, so my home in Austin was no more. So I'm trapped, quote unquote, at my mom's house, and I'm on this app called Clubhouse. Did you ever get into that app?
For like 2 minutes. It just didn't
Yeah.
really resonate for me, but I tried. Okay.
Yeah. So exactly 2 minutes. That was the life of the app. And I happened to be in a room with this woman called the Angel Coach. Her name's Emily Rivera. I ended up spending a bunch of money I didn't have at the time to hire her because I was like, I need her. She communes with angels. So in real time, she's talking to you and she hears them saying things and she'll be like, I don't know why I'm saying it this way, but I'm saying it this way.
Yeah.
Very cool. Her brother owns Transformation Academy. So last January, she just messages me out of the blue and she's like, the angels told me to tell you that Transformation Academy, my brother's company, is looking for a head coach. I immediately thought of you. And I was like, great. The universe is just always providing, if you
Wow.
believe it is.
It really is. And I have come to trust this so much because my journey also is so similar to yours. And I want to get into letting go of alcohol in a moment because there's another part of me that um, yeah, the reason why I think I know I trust so much in these divine directives, and I'm learning to truly hone the distinctions in my discernment, right? Is that intuition? Is it fear? And I can't say I'm 1000% always, always, always like just completely at ease and just in flow. I definitely question some things when I recognize that my 5-year-old little girl still wants to be told what to do, right? Just
Oh,
tell me what to
same.
do, just make it safe for me. And when I'm up against those thoughts, I know I just need to just turn inward and give her all the love and let her know that like the only one that's coming to save us is me. Let's work together and let's just trust and love. But wanting to have a channel to the divine, my angels, my guides, my team. I feel so supported in the nature realm, the angel realm, the fairyland world. It all supports and guides, but that channel for me has to be clear.
Mhm.
It can't be diluted and diminished with alcohol. And for me, cigarettes was my biggest addiction. And I mean, for almost 30 years, I smoked in secrecy. It was my big shadow, shameful secret that I completely let go of last summer. But just curious, like, how did alcohol and letting go of alcohol play a role in this divine flow, divine alignment? And where are you now? What's your relationship with alcohol now for those who are listening that might still feel attached and enslaved by those patterns?
Yeah. So real quick before I answer that, I want to acknowledge that as a generator, even though you're mani gen, we're still both generators. There's that sacral
Yeah.
response. That means that it takes an external stimulus for us to respond to, which oftentimes for a generator looks like I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting. Where do I live? Where am I going? What's next? And then when it comes and it's right, you know. But
Yeah.
until then, there's a lot of waiting and trusting, and it can be really frustrating. Um,
I chose to embody adventure thanks to my dear friend Gary Ing, who was also in our old community, the TR community. He was a plat like 5 years in a row, and that's how we met at BM Business Mastery in 2018. He's been a guest on this show. He's one of my very, very, very best friends because he had his dark night of the soul / awakening, tried to commit suicide. It was so painful for him, even
mm,
though he could retire and never have to work again. He had a wonderful wife and 3 young kids and big, beautiful community. Um, he didn't know how to navigate that time, as so many of us were so scared when we were going through the beginning stages. But yes, he's the one who said, I feel like I'm, because we have like probably 100 hours of telegram messages because he's in Australia, just audio notes back and forth still
oh,
to this day. And he always says, man, soul buddy, he's like, you take me on an adventure every time I get a message from you. I never know where it's going. And so yes, thank you, because
oh
I
my
had
gosh,
just
so true.
finally just like allowed for that of like, all right, guides, where are we going,
Yeah.
and so I'm just, yeah, learning to trust that. And I really hope that our listeners and our viewers can begin to just exhale into that as well, because there's magic when we do. Okay, well, back to you now, because that was
For
good.
sure. Yeah, and wow, I just resonate so much with this person. I've never met Gary. I mean,
Oh,
I I think that a major part of my decision to do a sober experiment, which is what I called it when I first did it. It was 6 weeks I had committed to because I knew that 4 wasn't long enough to overcome the dopamine addiction to it. And so what can happen is that
mm,
a lot of times we're so dopamine deprived still at the end of our 3 or 4 week stint of no alcohol that we think, actually, I felt better with it than without
mm,
it. So we go back to
mm.
whatever the thing is. Could be
Right.
porn, social media, alcohol, whatever, cigarettes. And so I was like, okay, I need to give myself at least 6 weeks. And what I found was the first couple weeks were really challenging. And I think I mentioned this to you offline, but I was not ever concerned about my quantity. It was pretty much a frequency issue. I was like, why do I feel the need, the pull to have alcohol every day? Even if it's just a drink, that frequency feels concerning to me. It feels like it has more of a hold on me than I would like anything in my life to have. So I want to check that. And the fact that it feels challenging to check it raises even bigger of a red flag for me.
Mm,
So after the first couple weeks where it was top of mind, like, oh, my friend's having wine. I want wine. I like wine. I would normally have wine right now.
mm.
I overcame that, went through some emotional purging, and
Yeah.
on the tail end of 6 weeks, I was like a born again Christian, I swear. I was like, "Did you guys know that this was here the whole time?" Like, I've never felt happier in my life, and I didn't
Same.
realize how unhappy I had been,
Yes.
like,
They
how
call that the pink
existential.
cloud. Are you familiar with that phrase, the pink cloud?
No.
Yeah, it's well, I don't go to 12-step programs and I'm not judging it. It just never called to me. But
Yeah.
the pink cloud is known in, I believe, in the 12-step programs where that joy, that natural joy and lift you think you're getting from alcohol, or actually you're not even aware it's coming from alcohol. You're just like, I am happy. What are you talking about? I got no problem with alcohol. Then you remove it from your system for about 6 weeks and you start to experience the same joy that you might have experienced as a young child, right? Free, unabashed, joyous. Like, yes, yes, I fully hear you. You can't put a price tag on that feeling. And I personally don't ever want to live life without it because it's
Yeah.
sustainable if you just don't
Yeah.
drink.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
buoyancy,
Yeah.
and I even became aware of, like, my energetic body in a way that I hadn't before. There was a purity to it, and I went to a bunch of things that in the past I would have wanted something to, enhance the experience. I went to a 10 or 8-day music festival in the jungle of Costa Rica, not a single substance. I stayed up as late as I wanted every night, danced for, 5 to 9 hours, and I was just totally sustained. It was amazing. And I was like, "I don't need anything, and I don't want anything," and anytime I saw friends with something, I was like, so attached to, like you said, the freeness, the cleanliness that I didn't wanna mess with it.
Yeah.
And, I did experiment when a couple weeks ago, I had someone visiting me, and part of where I live is really, these beautiful wineries, there's tons of breweries, and so we went and got one tasting, one day while he was here, and I recognized that even just that level of experimentation, I didn't enjoy the way I felt afterwards. I didn't enjoy, um, the pull I felt it having on me the
Mm.
next day of like, "Oh, well."
Tentacles.
Yes, the
Yeah.
tentacles.
Yes, yes, it's the evil spirits. I mean, they say literally the evil spirits are in the alcohol.
Yeah, yeah. So, the way or where I currently sit with it now is I'm not a black and white person. I can't see myself saying, "I'll never do this," or "I'll always do this," 'cause
Mhm.
life is not that way. But I like to think of everything as an experiment, and my recent experiment with it again reiterated my hypothesis, which is that life is better without it.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful, and at your age, because I know that you're is it okay to say, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
mid-30s? What I do know is that, when I was mid-30s, I would have, like, a glass.
Mm,
And they call it a progressive they say a disease. I don't really know about those types of labels and titles, but I definitely know that that happened for me. Like, I would have a glass of wine. I really didn't drink alcohol. Again, my thing was cigarettes, but then in my
mm,
40s, it was like, "Wait a second." I remember like it was yesterday when I went to go pour another glass of wine from the refrigerator. I was living in Beverly Hills, and the bottle emptied in that glass, and I was like, "Wait." It was so shocking. I was like, "Wait, wait, no, that can't be the right bottle." I drank a whole bottle,
mhm,
and that was the first time, and then that became the norm
mhm.
very shortly,
Yeah,
and I really was more than not more than a bottle, doesn't matter. For some, that's so much, for some, that's nothing, you're just getting started. It's all relative, but what
mhm.
I know is that a bottle of wine almost every night up until August of 21 for me. I let go of alcohol for 4 years. When I built my business, started my podcast, I felt really aligned. I didn't know how much ego and mask was running me at that time, but you learn as you go, and then the awakening, the reckoning of the lockdowns and all of that, and then doing that plant medicine journey in August of 21. And then it was 2 days later, I actually quit the drinking day of going there and I was like, I know that that does not work for me. And it felt like if I kept drinking, I wouldn't be able to discern. And that's the only way I can know it was like I wanted a sovereign mind, body, and soul. And so then I went on the bandwagon, of course, because it's very common, right? We awaken to some freedom, some liberation, and we want everyone else to have it
Totally.
too. And then you go through the whole process, at least I did, of like, wait, that's more ego. Like I'm not here to wake anyone else up or to judge. And I'm just here to awaken myself more fully and to share that vibration, share that embodiment of authenticity and joyous living. And if that's for others to pick up on, beautiful. And if it's not, on their way they go, right? But I'm
Mm.
curious, did it shift some connections, some friendships, some socializing?
Mm. I'm surprised and delighted to say that it didn't.
Mm,
I was in Costa Rica with people who I typically would have had many drinks with in the past, and it was a non-issue that I wasn't wanting anything. And even my friends here, whereas our habit was we go to a winery, we go to a brewery every single night to like grab a drink, get out of the house. We all work from home.
yeah, yeah.
I would just get a non-alcoholic drink
Mm,
and
beautiful.
be just as fun, and then I started noticing that they were drinking less. They would order non-alcoholic beers or
Interesting.
something else. So, I really just think that that's the effect of embodiment
Yeah,
over ego is you can't influence people if you're judging them.
that's right.
and you don't really care to influence them if you're so fully embodied. It doesn't really matter what everyone else is doing.
So true. Beautifully said. Oh my gosh. So wise. I love that. That is really beautiful. That one really shifted me. Thank you. Because it's
Mm.
still a piece in me that in my gene keys, it's all over my why I'm here and incarnated
Yeah.
in this particular life at this time. And so that was beautiful. Thank you for that. And I'm experiencing that now. And I'm like, finally, but the gene keys have given me an awareness around all that turbulence and conflict and dominance that I was experiencing with so much judgment. I was like, Ram Dass and I could be best friends. Like, I don't know if you know, but his teacher Maharaji was like, Ram Dass, love everybody. I don't
Yeah.
know. This story just came in because it feels so
Yeah.
relative. And Ram Dass said, I can't. I judge too much. And
Mhm.
Maharaji said, Ram Dass, love everybody and tell the truth,
Yeah.
you know? So that feels like such a beautiful place to kind of pause there. But I am curious, like, now what's calling you and how do you discern the messages? Because you've been through a lot and now you're just like, this is my life. Like you're beginning to ride those cosmic waves, right? But what's calling you next or what's now?
I think that for me to continue pouring into the bold life movement, mission number 1 is, am I embodying it? Am I living it? And so that looks like, in some situations, choosing discipline over the experience. In other situations, it looks like choosing bravery and visibility over perfectionism. And so it's really a day-to-day question. How do I want to be? What
Mm,
does being an embodied example of a bold, brave life look like?
mm,
And so I've been pouring into my next book. It's called Sell Like You Fuck. It's all about magnetic marketing and intimate relationship-based sales,
mm.
and the discipline that is required to birth a book is a very bold thing for me right now.
It's a really
'Cause
bold thing.
yeah, like, wow, who knew discipline and, like, staying home and just writing pages would be bold? It is.
Very bold, yes.
Yeah, and really just owning that the full spectrum of being a human is allowed, and my practice of letting myself grieve, letting myself need, quote unquote, a lot from my relationships because I give a lot, and anyone who's not a match to whatever I'm being is going to fall away, and allowing myself to grieve that. It's just kind of a lot of allowing right now.
I love that. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. My words for this year, I always choose one, but this year I chose
Yeah.
two, and it was now, allow. Just those two words. Just allow the now, just be in the now, just allow for the now. Like the now is so much more profound than anything I could have ever planned. I got that from Kyle Cease, who's one of my favorites.
Love Kyle.
Right, I know, he's just so good. In our last couple of minutes together, is there anything that you feel called to share around discernment, divine alignment, divine directives, or that you wish you had been asked?
Mm. I think that the main thing that wants to come through in terms of discernment is that sometimes it's going to be really scary to
Mm,
honor your discernment. But what I've found is that when I ignore the little whispers, they only get louder.
mm,
And the opportunities to really take a stand for what I say I believe in and what I
mm,
say I'm about will become bigger. And so you might as well just listen at the at
mm.
the beginning. And then also, I just really want to advocate for choosing words and intentions to
Mm,
live by. I mean, choosing Quantum and Bloom last year literally set the stage for my whole year, and I was rewarded almost instantly. And then this year, I ended up choosing three. Rise, which is sort of like the main one, like really rising from the ashes. I mean, last year was a doozy, rising up to meet my highest self.
mm,
And then under that, as kind of like the two pillar words, I have complete, which is sort
mm,
of like the anchor discipline that we were just talking about, finishing old projects, and magic. Because
mm.
as long as I'm open to magic, she will present herself.
Oh, I love the frequency of magic. It's actually my favorite word right now.
Mm.
And one of the mountain town that I'm considering moving to, I'm going to go visit in 10 days. It's between there and Austin, or so I
Oh.
think. I'm just listening. But every single person that's described it down there says it's magic. I was like,
Mm.
well, that's what I've been living the past 6, 7 months. So I'd like to go live some more magic. Yes. What do you
Is
have?
my it's my journal,
What?
San Miguel. Yeah, this is why I said I got chills earlier when you said you're gonna go to
Maybe you're
San
gonna
Miguel.
come live there too. I mean, listen, I don't know.
Isn't that amazing though? I've
That's
never been.
incredible. What are the chances? Yeah, because well, I'm just gonna give a little context. I had shared with you in a voice note before we even came onto the show today that before I decided anything on Austin, Spirit said you gotta go walk the land and listen and then you're like, what? I just got this spark. Oh,
Mhm.
that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, so I
Well,
can't wait to hear about your visit there. And I know people who have lived there and loved it.
oh, wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious. I feel like it's a short-term thing if I do, and then it's just kind of it's like a go bravely gets me out of the States, which I am feeling that call, but I don't know. I'm again like you, just trusting in the adventure.
Yeah.
And I want to speak to the one thing that you said really quickly, and then we'll find out how our listeners and viewers can connect with you if they feel called. But the one word intention, I've been doing this now for probably 20 years, but it got where I really saw it shift my life completely was 21. The beginning of 21, I was in this really fancy, expensive business mastermind. I was like, I finally had earned the right to arrive, right? All that old 3D programming. And anyway, but I now know why I was placed in that mastermind. It wasn't to learn how to grow my business, it was because by February, we all met in Sedona. My
Mm,
one word intention was curiosity. And I didn't really connect or vibe, honestly, with anyone in that 18-person group. It just wasn't really my tribe. But I was meant to sit next to this one woman. We haven't really talked since. This is February of 21. I would say she opened up the red pill door, and I'm the one who courageously walked through it out of curiosity. For the
mhm,
next 6 months, I didn't know how I could live or how any of us would live. It was very scary times. Made it through massive dark night of the soul, but curiosity is what changed my life.
mhm.
So these one word intentions, like, and right now, like spinning out to the future, where will I live? What's going to happen? It's like be in the now and allow for the wisdom and the directives to
Mm.
come through, right? So it's just so cool. Yes, you're doing the snaps. Okay, I
Yeah.
know we have to wrap you in 2 minutes. Where can our listeners and viewers connect with you?
I am on Instagram at the Kimberly Rich, and I'm really like a people person. Please DM me and let's connect. Let's hear what resonated about this conversation, what your goals are, what you're excited about, and what we can connect over. And then if you want to get even more information about me, theboldlifemovement.com has all the things, my podcasts, my TEDx,
Mm.
the forthcoming book, all the things. So
Forthcoming book. Wait, forthcoming, but is this your fourth book or second book?
no, no, no. This it'll be my first. The first one I'm 90% done and I've been sitting on. This is like my biggest bold life birth moment.
And it
Uh,
really is. It truly is. I'm embarking on my second book now, and it is a whole thing. So I really honor you and celebrate you with so much gratitude. Kim, it's such a pleasure to connect with you in this space. I feel like I'm talking to a sister on the path, and I know there's more, and I'm excited by that. So to be continued. I'd like
yeah.
to continue the conversation even here, maybe in 6 months or so, and we'll have so much more to share.
Yeah, I love you, Michelle. Thank
I
you so
love you too,
much for
honey.
being who you are.
Oh, likewise. All right, I'll let you go. I know you've got to go coach right now,
Yeah,
but thank you for coming on the show. It's been such a pleasure to connect with you in this way.
same. Mwah.
Mwah.